record this, they're still going to see that. You know, I tried it myself today.
From the roots of the world tree I rise. Ash on my skin, fire in my eyes. Old blood remembers the ancestors' call. Through stone and through silence I walk through it all. The veil is thinning, the shadows awake. Earth starts to tremble, the mountains will shake. Rise, rise, ancient flame! We carry the song that has no name. Through storm and starlight, we are reborn. The circle is unbroken, the veil is torn. I drink from the river that flows under time. 9 worlds are whispering inside of my mind. The wolf is howling, the raven takes flight. I become the bridge between darkness and light. The veil is thinning, the shadows awake. Earth starts to tremble, the mountains will
Already have the link. Wanna share it in the chat? There you go, that's the link to share. I still haven't shared it on X.
I've got a next post I was trying to get to you. Welcome, everybody, to the RoundTable Chronicles as we still execute a little basic PR.
Yeah, this will get better. The intro still doesn't have the countdown that will allow us to finish all this. So just bear with us. And now X decided that I'm out of X, so I have to go into X. Oh, dear Lord. Verify your identity.
Well, I've got our link up and a short intro video I filmed while you were playing our intro video. I hopefully muted it, and so that is out. I am going to take it and run over to Mr. Lee Pennington's post because he was so kind to share us on Facebook. I am going to run over there and post live now. And
I can't enter in my X. Just to.
I got us, bro. You do your job. Talk to our guests, and I am spreading this thing like some fucking wildfire. These groups probably hate me at this point for spamming, trying to get our show up and running. Groups. No, not copy link.
Great. My X actually doesn't allow me in.
So do we have Rick and Vincent here with us?
Bring it on.
Yes. Bring it on, Vincent. So
Hello.
you and I, hey, welcome everyone. Let me get a grip on my multitasking PR. Take over my job of telling everybody what the hell it is we're doing. Yes, Forgotten Alabama should be watching us, and certainly Mentone neighbor to neighbor, because we are going to be looking at maps of that area perhaps and talking about that area tonight. And let me say live now and get back to our guests that may or may not have arrived in the chat. Gentlemen, while we give everybody a few moments
Yeah, I managed to go
to
in
get
X.
here, I have sort of a warm-up chat planned for us, and I figure that could lead us into some commonalities amongst you all and kind of a general mission statement for what it is we kind of are doing here. True buddy. No, true seer. Tree buddy. Good to see you. All Pulp, Jacqueline, Sarah, thank you. Young Stitches, let's go. Man, you're supportive, aren't you? Everywhere of everybody. Thank you, sir. Whoever you are, Young Stitches, we greatly appreciate it. So listen, to my point, since I'm the guy that said I had one, let's look at our impromptu episode. Guys are used to following us. You're used to Ricardo and I doing the shaman and the philosopher on Sunday night. Well, we had to go live Wednesday. We had to go live because we had Sir Lee Pennington on with us. And I am going to reserve any comments I might have because I know you two gentlemen, and for certain Rick, because I watched a documentary warming up for this honor we had to have this guest, and I saw you with hair about 3 times as long as the hair I wear now. So I'd be remiss to start this question of mine. I'd like to hand it over to one of you two gentlemen that have known him longer than any of us, and just yeah, it was such a special thing and such a nice connection here for the folks at home to know, you know, the round table, to get a little backstory. I kind of just wanted to open with that, not to say, did you guys see the show, but to say honestly, what do you have to say when that man's name comes up?
Vince, go right ahead.
Yes, Lee Pennington, Sir Lee Pennington is really a amazing historian and poet and author, filmmaker. I mean, he's been involved in so many amazing projects. And I met him first in Michigan and at the Ancient American Conference in Upper Michigan, and also in Ohio. Went to visit Serpent Mountain, Ohio at the I guess the Midwest Conference. So I mean, it's been amazing, and I'm impressed. He's actually been a teacher of poetry for so many years, and just amazing historian there, a great speaker, and even musician. Just really impressive person to speak with, and it was a great show. And I think your introduction to him was the best introduction that I've ever heard. So I think he was happy to hear that as well.
We do try our best for our guests.
Yeah, that's really it. It's as I said before, you know, Vincent. Again, thank you for the compliment. Honest feedback, please. That includes the chat. Y'all be real. It's been a long time since I did readings, but honestly, we were just trying to say how we felt and to show how we felt. Yeah, thank you, Vincent.
Vince,
And I first
oh,
met
sorry,
Lee.
sorry, Rick. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please, Rick.
Yeah, I first met Lee, I think it was 2007. I had known some of his work by Ancient American Magazine, knew his name, etc. But as soon as I met him, which was at an AAPS, it was AAAPS back then, AAPF, I forget now. They've had name changes a couple of times. Anyway, I met him and several of the other, I'll call them regulars, founders even. Fred Reedholm was there that first year too. So my introduction to the core of the researchers was all at once. There they were, right in front of me. I had been doing research on my own alone for years, and then I met Lee, and things blew up. And I think Vince will remember when Lee wanted to go to Welsh Cave. But he was, at that time, I think he was, let me think about this. It had been 72 or 3, my age at that time. Damn it. And he was afraid he couldn't get up and down the cliff. And Vince was on the show with me while we were interviewing Lee at that time. And we vowed that somehow or another we would get him in that cave. And so I found out how to make a climbing rope with loops so that, you know, it's just easy. And took that with me. And really, I'm not sure we even needed it, but it was a reassuring thing for Lee especially, because he'd just fairly recently had heart surgery. Anyway, yeah. So here we are getting that old man on the face of a 150-foot tall cliff on a 20-inch wide path in places. There we were. And it hasn't slowed down a whole lot since. And I say
It,
that with tongue in cheek because I
it's a
followed him
very
down there.
Grailic mission you described to us that you were on, and so nobly
Oh, the
escorted
fun part was
many are.
following him from Louisville down to Mentone on I-65, doing I don't know how many miles per hour all the way, but man never drives slow.
Yeah, that I don't think he's driven his life very slowly at all.
Yeah.
He seems to have had precisely what can happen when you just stay present and in the moment where you're supposed to be. What I call a guided life, because looking back, and hearing it described, there's no other way to put it. It looks like a novel. It looks like a novel nobody would believe. I reiterate to the audience. I think I told these guys privately that my whole life, if I had a stat sheet for the type individual that I looked to get to be around, to hopefully maybe make friends with, to learn something from, to whatever, to connect with, that he maxed out every stat. He would have been the highest regard, because when Ricardo sent this dude the resume initially, I went bullshit. I mean, in my head, I wasn't going to tell Ricardo that, I was going to do my own research first. But that was my initial reaction, was like, this is too amazing. This is too perfect. This seems
He's
too
like
outlandish.
3 times nominated for Pulitzer Prizes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on and
Absolutely.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
these
go
new
ahead.
generations don't know who Lee Pennington is. So
Right.
They ought to, though. He's got his own room or section, actually, in the Speed Museum at University of Louisville. I bet he didn't mention that, did he?
no, we didn't, but I did on the yes.
Oh,
Jason did
yeah.
on the introduction.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, the adjacent room is a collection of, come on, brain. Wow, that just went out my brain.
Collection of authors.
Who wrote
or-
Tarzan? Help me out. Who wrote Tarzan? Who wrote John Carter of Mars?
I'm going to brain fart along with you on that one. Chat, who wrote Tarzan?
The guy that
Anyway.
wrote Tarzan is the same guy that wrote the.
Oh, Burroughs, Edgar
Yeah.
Burroughs.
Yes, thank you, Vince.
I had to look it up.
Edgar Rice Burroughs. Yes.
Vince, you and
And
I will share producer duties tonight, okay?
so
between
so
the two
that's
of
the
us, we
next
got
door
this shit.
neighbor collection to Lee's collection, if that puts you in any perspective.
Yeah, Burroughs. And Lee has an amazing art collection there at the museum, I believe, and a lot of art and historical items.
Yes. And basically his entire personal collection has been, I believe, gifted to the university as well.
Yes.
It's it's been something. We certainly were trying to fill a little time, let our audience get in here before we got to the meat of things and discuss this guest. But I'll just say that post show, his reaction, the graciousness is one word. If I try to make this quick, that comes to mind. But gosh, y'all, just his response has had me sort of giddy all week. To count among my hopefully soon to be friends, and certainly someone that seems to have a modicum of understanding of what we're trying to do here. I think he hit on the head in his remarks about this, and that's what you guys, Rick, you were hitting on, was not enough people know about him. I posted publicly about him today because of what he said, about his experience. I said a certain part of myself is kind of saved and emboldened at the same time by knowing you walk the earth, just having sort of met and seen the reality of this individual. And I know there's so many more, you know. And Rick, I mean, I saw you in some of these documentaries early on before I met you, and you know, you too fall into that category, you know, and that is why we still say we're fortunate, you know, here when you and I, you know, have done enough of this to fuck around with each other.
But
But it is at the heart of our mission.
is this the
Is
point where I say you ain't seen nothing yet, fella?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. That is
Oh, okay.
precisely where you launched that one. And I know it, and hopefully our audience believes it, that you've seen nothing yet. We've just been trying to warm up this platform, warm up with each other, and have fun and learn. You know, these guys have been teaching me in this process. I had a post today, man, where somebody, I think it was Mound Lore, posted these mysterious pipe end or flute looking, you know, very artistically engraved artifacts. And, you know, somebody, I think it was Occam's Razor, you know, had posted line tools maybe. And I got to chime in and go, hey, I learned that, you know, that's what I know now, thanks to this show. But yeah, audience, that's what we've been trying to do, is just get everybody warmed up and see if there's an appetite for hopefully what we have to offer.
Sure.
And now,
I was very
Go ahead,
pleased. Sorry, I was very pleased to see that, at least on Facebook, people were taking the opportunity to follow the trend and write a few words in homage to him too, saying, "Oh, I could have said this before, but here it is now." So, I think it's emotion for here, but it's more than deserved. So, and often too late. So
well,
I'm
and
pleased.
it's a lesson too, Ricardo. It's a lesson in the way I know you operate. You know, I've learned as your partner. But it's a lesson I drive home to everyone as well, which is, you know, think long, think wrong, right? I think what I saw exhibited when you sent me, you know, that introduction, what I saw is, as you say, something so many could say, but why? So why aren't we? You know, so why aren't we, right?
Yeah.
So let's
And
start saying
remind,
it.
Remind us his words about Rick Osman.
Well, yes. I mean, and then
After the insults. What
in
he had to
several
say.
documentaries, yeah, I think I brought up, you know, a couple of documentaries you dudes are in, and yeah, he reaffirmed that a living repository of knowledge of, you know, all things American and history. Yeah,
not only.
you've got full seal and blessing. Actually, multiple times. We've talked about you a lot. We did get a few funny stories out of the way. We've got ladies in the audience here, so we'll leave them be. But no, seriously. Seal and approval, and I've been bragging on you. I know you're not on social media, but I've been using that endorsement as well. You know, and that's why we all end up here, folks, and that's what we're trying to do, is when you identify people who are walking wisdom. You know, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? I heard it put this way by Dan Millman in one of his books. He was describing some window washers and a young guy trying to learn how to work at a gas station. And they were having philosophical talk. And he said, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? He said, it's easy. Knowledge is knowing how to wash the windshield. And he throws him the shit to wash the windshield. And wisdom is washing the windshield, right? So that's why I say wisdom. Knowledge is part and parcel of it. But you have something else. You have a lived it, a walked it, a filmed it, a talked it, a shoot it, a felt it, you know, paid for it, bought it, checks in the mail, the whole deal. So wisdom is why we fortuitously sit with you dudes now.
Well, answering to Sahara and Ro, it's a easy way to support the institute. So it's on. I don't know the name of the store of the institute. Is on the
The Institute of Natural Philosophy.org.
Institute of Natural Philosophy website.
Institute for Natural Philosophy website, but the store itself is by Yorgos Sekalaris. He's the one that created all the items for the institute. And
George.
Yeah, George. And not only he knows that we want things cheap, he also selected the best materials possible. So it's easy way to support us.
Vincent has a handle on
Now,
chat.
I think we should start with an enormous bombshell. Oh, there it is. That is
We're going to start with Vincent.
Yeah, we are
Oh, okay.
all very excited because apparently someone within the Simpsonian had tell Vince in an email that he was arranging a time and a day for Vincent to be able to go and do the testing on the PCs. Apparently things take a turn, Vincent, and I'll let you explain what happened.
Okay, right. So this week we had a disappointing response saying, I'm sorry this is a disappointment, but we cannot do anything more in support of your inquiry. Thank you for understanding. And so it was kind of a surprise and shock after being told they were going to help us and that they can use their own equipment. So I drafted a response back and I said, hey, this archaeological site is located right next to Pisgah High School in Haywood County, North Carolina, where a major find has sparked the interest of Atlantic savants and history buffs. The artifacts were discovered in 1880 by Civil War veterans A.J. Osborne and J.M. Burnett. The 2,500 objects found in the mound were located at the end of Huggy Bear Hill Road, named for the artifacts resembling hugging bears. The site was located where they were found that has changed the name from Mount Pisgah to Garden Creek Mound and sparked an investigation into some of the most enigmatic and mysterious artifacts ever found in Eastern North America. There were so many artifacts found there in the mound that they were divided up between 3 museums: the Smithsonian, the University of North Carolina, and the Ballantine Museum. These artifacts meet the description of tutelar deities, dodemags, clan effigies, phratries, crests, moiety, guardian spirits, animistic fetishes, Egyptian shabti, Sierra Leone anomaly, Chinese tomb figures, and have sky and earth divisions representing the tribal organization. Presently, each of the museums curating these artifacts have now denied research requests to understand these relics. The University of North Carolina, on September 22nd, 2025, refused to research the artifacts. After requesting to look at them in their museum and view the 28 wampum belts found on site, they replied they would not allow any research for this site. On August 9th, 1999, NAGPRA wrote a claim to repatriate these artifacts from Garden Creek site. And the NAGPRA claim may be one of the reasons that they won't let anybody look at them. However, the Smithsonian replied on January 21st, 2026, just 2 days ago, with a refusal to permit research for the portion of the collection in their facility. First denying their possession of the Mount Pisgah relics, then they found that they had these in their collection when I pressed them and asked again.
Yeah, they told you first that they didn't have them, right?
Right, they told me first they did not have any. They denied they were in their own collection. And I said, well, what about the ones that you have on your catalog, marked Haywood County from Emmert in 1883? And as a reminder, they then updated their catalog to say Vincent identified these. So after denying them and then finding them, they sent pictures of 3 of the artifacts from Mount Pisgah and showing the cabinet drawers where these were located. I pressed them again saying, well, can I meet you on site? Can I research them? We'd really like to view these and learn about them, possibly even identify their coding with a Raman spectroscopy tool, which they have on site as well. And it's a known scientific method where they can determine the composition chemically of the surface patina and veneer on the artifacts. Well, they reached out to their research organization and they first sounded like they were going to allow it. Then just 2 days ago, they declined to allow research. And subsequently to this, the Ballantine Museum, which houses the other large portion of this collection, they have 900 of these pieces from the mound. Well, they initially allowed testing on these artifacts on February 1st, 2025. And they allowed us to commission testing with Oxford Authentication, where they had a certified Oxford authenticator come in, take samples from the artifacts for testing of thermoluminescence. And following the testing, 8 weeks later, they released the results saying that they were insensitive. Some of the results showed that these are dating to 100 years before current. And the other was, so two of them said 100 years old. The other said insensitive to testing. So the museum then deleted photos from their website and deleted the word Mount Pisgah from the excavation crew photos. They deleted any mention of the site from their catalog. They removed the excavation photos of a crew showing 35 people that had recovered the figurines on the site and excavated the mound in which they were found. And the skeletons that were in the mound were also deleted from the photos on their website. They also removed the word primitive pottery from their website where it described the figurines. And of the 10 photos they originally had posted on their site, they left only one up saying made in 1883. When I asked them how could it have been made after it was found, they didn't reply. And they never responded about any of my emails subsequently asking, why is NAGPRA claim to the site not acknowledged? And do they plan to comply with NAGPRA's rules and regulations? They have not responded. So what initially caused it?
And if I'm correct, the indigenous that can claim ownership of those items didn't know that they were rejecting any research on it, right?
That's right. They didn't know. They didn't know that they were rejecting research. They didn't know that they existed. And these artifacts literally were drawered for over almost 150 years now with no knowledge. There's very little known about them. There's very little published about them. I first found one small reference to them back in 2005 in the museum, and was able to view them at the Valentine Museum. They've since been taken off display and put in a storage locker. And so we did research and we found what initially caused the controversy on these artifacts. Well, the 1883 Code of Indian Offenses was passed 10 days before the Smithsonian showed up on site with John Emmert, and they basically tried to debunk these, and they claimed that they were modern manufactured imitations of Indian figurines.
So, Vincent, will you briefly tell our audience about this act you're describing that took place that was enacted 10 days? This was essentially trying to denounce Native culture and
Right.
religion.
It was a federal mandate to denounce Native religious ceremonies and suppress marriage rights, banning Dodomag clans and symbols, banning the use of any Native ceremonies or marriages. And these artifacts pertain directly to the Native marriage rights because they are the representation of their clans or their families.
Yeah, and many of them have a man and a woman with holding hands or in a...
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The flavor in Washington at the time, then, the atmosphere of the administration, if I'm understanding you correctly for our audience, was to shut this shit down as far as anything native, cultural, and of value went. Is that roughly what we're saying that act was saying?
Absolutely. And the 1883 Code of Indian Offenses likely contributed to a lot of the hoax methodology or accusations of any Indian artifacts found anywhere in North America since then. And
including the Michigan relic.
right,
Michigan
including
tablet.
relics, including anything with writing on it or a form of native cultural heritage. So they went after anything that pertained to religion or culture among the Native Americans that was found in mounds as a result of this 1883 Code of Indian Offenses.
So we have this offense in place, and as Rick starts alluding to with the writing, for our audience, we already have in place a cultural understanding, at least in any elite circles of the time, that finding proof of contact, proof of advance, and we just mean advanced natives. Like, you know, we know that that any scientist today would tell you the Native Americans were, right? That's what I mean by advanced. Any signs of it advanced cultures or inhabitants of this continent for reasons that involved international treaties and land rights needed to be squashed. And of course, that carried on into national policy, which we then see enacted in 1883, as Vince described. Now, Vincent, to keep going with you, how many more days later before they head on down to Garden Creek and start trying to call all this shit fake?
10 days after this law passed, they were on site at Garden Creek, and they were trying to work on this plan for basically debunking the entire site. And this was the Cherokee homeland. The Cherokee had been kicked off land in 1830 in the Trail of Tears, but since had moved back in some parts and relocated or stayed around on site. Well, this excavation happened in 1880, but the Valentine Museum showed up in 1883, and they had idea that they could debunk the site and basically draw it. So they accused Valentine of either planting or buying these artifacts from someone who had tried to dupe him, or to make imitation figurines and sell them as real. And the figurines, they said that they were immersed in water to change their appearance, but in fact we found, well, you can't change the appearance of steatite in water. It would have to be put in a fire, and these in fact were in a fire, and they had been heated up, and so they'd been changed from steatite to enstatite. And this Raman spectroscopy method that they could use would be able to prove that, but they would not allow it. They didn't permit it, and they said,
Well, I think that's the problem. We'll be able to prove that.
We'll be able to prove that. And see, the way, for our audience, the way in which they describe this being fake, listen to this. All right. He says the Smithsonian representative goes down there and he says, I found a dude, and he says for a few bucks, he'll make me some. And, here's how he's going to do it. He's going to carve it by hand in a day. Okay. And then he's going to put it in the creek for 2 or 3. And then he's going to take it out, and it's going to look just like these. It's quite a bullshit, story about how to fake something. Anybody who's ever lived around a creek with, even I've got creeks loaded with iron, guys, and you can see some rocks pulled behind them. You can see a little staining, depending on the side of the rock. But you're not doing shit in 3 days. Go ahead, Vince.
right. So this calls attention to the need for the curators to allow researchers to understand the history of these relics and all other relics found in the country. I mean, the Michigan relics should be looked at again. All of the ones with writing on them, everything that has been basically canned or accused of being planted should be looked at again, because these archaeologists and this rule of 1883 Native Religious Code of Indian Offenses really changed the way that these artifacts were handled, and it put them in a box. It disallowed researchers to look at them, and this is still going on today. And
Vincent, what's
Not
the
to
chance?
accuse anybody today, but what Vince, go ahead, Rick, hold, go, Ricardo, right after this. But what Vince is saying, to clarify, is look, precedent. It's just like in law, okay? Fucking precedent gets set, and we got precedent at the Smithsonian set, and so people today, whether wittingly or unwittingly, I just like to clarify, we're not speaking to any particular individual that works for the Smithsonian, but a precedent has been set in place, and this is evidence of such. Go ahead, Ricardo.
I was going to ask, thank you. What's the chance of they have used the 10 days for themselves to do some testing, and they saw that he would overrule what's the current narrative about them, and then deny it?
yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Because it's easy to test, right? You explained to me the testing is quite simple and easy to do. So
Right, the testing would take a matter of 30 seconds, and they have the equipment.
In-house.
They had the equipment. They had said they were going to do it, and then all of a sudden they changed their answer. Like, we're not going to let you do this. So there's pretty good, reason to believe that they did the testing on their own and then found something that they didn't want anybody to know. So they said, no, we're not going to allow you to do this.
because you taught them that. You
Right.
did. You taught them that because on the last testing, they were between commas, foolish enough to allow the testing, and then the results were not on their interest, and so some said we don't reveal the results, and then they say, oh no, there's nothing to show, they're just insensitive to the test, so there's no results possible coming from this, and it can be from 100 to 1,000 years or something like
Yeah,
that.
100 equals 1,000. No looking at this. Yeah, there's nothing to see
So,
here.
nothing.
So
I
this
just
is-
sorry to interrupt you. I just want to give some attention to this because I don't know who it is, but I'm sure Rick knows because they are asking. Ro is asking the chef if anyone remembers Gustav Whitehead. Does that ring a bell to you, Rick?
The name does, but I don't remember why.
No, he's saying that Smithsonian erased his history, but I don't know what
I'll take
is
a
it.
look, Rick.
I think Vincent is already on it.
Vincent, you got it? Go for it, bro. I'll get back to you guys.
no, I was
Vincent,
just,
when you got something, just pull it up. Share it with the audience if you get something.
I was just replying on the t-shirt comments. Yeah, those t-shirts are great. They're available on.
Oh, my
online.
bad. Look, Ricardo, throwing me off my game. What is that about? Goose?
What have I done?
What
I
was his
don't.
last name? It
Don't
wasn't Klimt. I can't see all the chats.
So
Gustav
anyway,
Whitehead.
Thank you.
the amount of distrust caused by these museums who manipulate the data, delete provenance, hide scientific testing results that are commissioned, this just severely undermines curatorial trust and the need to preserve our past and our history. And it's time that we do something about that. And I mean, the only way we can do is provide, keep on pushing and pressing. Hopefully one day we'll have a breakthrough and and learn about these. There's definitely a lot to be learned from them. They're proof of Atlantic connections that could go well back into prehistory, early, even into the archaic time frame or paleo time frames.
Well, since you hit on that, there have been a couple of news items this past week that are right in that neck of the woods. There's an 11,500-year-old village site in Canada. That's long before there were supposed to be permanent residents. And then there was also an 18,000-year-old site announced in Chile, which is almost 5,000 years earlier than what they had announced earlier. So it's getting interesting.
This week I found some really interesting Mobilian trade language connections as well. There's a book by Kaufman called Mobilian Trade Language. And Kaufman published the word for horse in his book. Well, horse is the word soba, and it's a Mobilian word. And the Chickasaw also used the word soba for horse. Well, looking into it even more, the Japanese use the word soba to represent their meal called horses. They made buckwheat noodles with horse meat on them. So there's a Japanese connection there. There's also a connection to the Thracian, the people in Turkey. The ancient Thracian word for horse is soba. So this is something that is really interesting. It goes around the world. They had this word soba for horse, and it went from Turkey, ancient Thracian, to Japan, China, and it's something that was somehow picked up among the Mobilian and the Chickasaw.
So
Go ahead, Vin. Rick.
I think it might be somewhat related. I was watching, I was working, and I came across this.
No, you were not. When were you doing that?
Oh yeah, well, and let me just go to the paper here, and I had to stop the work because I thought, well, this is somewhat interesting. Where do I have it? Is it in a?
I hope our audience by now knows the
Yes.
rule that when you bust somebody's balls, that's because they're actually doing the thing.
No.
Otherwise, it's
me-
just being mean.
share this
Works
share
his
this screen
ass off.
because I'm sure that Rick knows about this, or it might even have hold this in his hand or seen it. Chrome tab, this tab, share. Is it on screen?
Yes.
Yeah, you're there.
Okay. So,
What are we looking at?
Rick, do you know the Pricer mount had effigy?
I know of it. I've never held it in my hand,
Okay.
however.
So, this is an
It's
image.
it's an artifact. So
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, so
I have held one that is a fairly close facsimile that came from Manchester County, Kentucky.
Dude. Are
So-
those cracks, or is that meant to be portraying brains?
no,
or
it's fired pottery. So it's made fired pottery. What called my attention is this is considered to be, and this is from another episode that Rick is in and is talking to this gentleman.
Yeah.
And the gentleman is a ex-professor of history, and he's saying, well, they say that this represents the indigenous that live there. And he say, and I disagree, because who knows what they were representing? It might be someone from outside. It could be something they seen, something that someone traveled.
You're saying
and-
whether or not it was facially representative of the natives of the
yeah,
area.
they consider this is an image of the natives of the time, right?
See, okay.
But there was something resonating with me about this image, because I know that in the Middle East they have this tradition of covering the skulls with clay and creating the faces, and they lay them on the bones, right? They found several of those. And one thing that they do to those skulls is forensic facial reconstruction, right? And so they can get to the person that was there. They can do that with the skull. They do that with the masks that they put there. But no one did that to this one for some reason, right? So I decided to go and use 3 systems to do exactly that. Try to make a reconstruction and see what it come up.
Yeah, I would like to see it turned myself,
So-
because it looks to me, before you take it away, right there, Ricardo, look, go back to, it's right there. Scroll down a little bit. They're showing the brains. That seems important to me.
No, yes, it might seem that, but it's because it's flaking. The pottery
Okay.
is already. This is only 8 centimeters. It's like this big. It's very very small. It's a very
I
small.
just
thing.
asked Grok to try to turn it around for me. Let's see what happens.
And when I put this is one of those masks, one of the most famous one here of the East area, and this is the reconstruction of this side by side. So when I look into this, the conclusion is very simple. It says, when examined through a comparative and anatomically inferred lens, the Pricer mount head effigy demonstrates a level of biological coherence inconsistent with purely abstract representation. Its facial morphology, particularly nasal architecture, mid-facial containment, and lack of prognatism, aligns most closely with West Eurasian craniofacial patterning. So what this means
So this is Ohio,
is that
the Pricer Mound.
yeah, what this means is this face, the nose, the proximity of the eyes, the cheekbones, the absence of prognatism leads this face to the Levant area. And I think that some religious peoples that have been looking for one of these things, right, Rick, that say it came from there. And I found it funny that these were the results that I got in the research that I did.
That's really interesting. And hey, by the way, did you know that the Siop Pricer mound also had matching relics to Mount Pishka? of a canine eating a human head.
That's what I was about to read, dude. The Hopewell dog eating the human head pipe, or the Sayop dog effigy pipe. Let's find the picture.
Yeah, that's a strong connection. They had the same image at both Mount Pisgah, North Carolina.
Yeah. So
Sayop.
what remind me was what I saying to you. They could have done the testing because in this phase, I believe someone has done this before, and the results would point to the 11th area, which they don't want to talk about. There is no
They don't wanna
connection.
talk about those things.
There's no connection to that area, right? Because it doesn't resemble any of the indigenous features, no matter what tribe you look in the area.
The Manchester County, Kentucky version is made out of sandstone, but the expression is just, and because it's sandstone, it's more worn than the pottery. But the expression is the same. The eye structure, almost everything is the same. The lips are pretty much worn away on the sandstone version.
There's another connection between the Americas and
Are they any of these?
the Eastern Mediterranean.
So
What are you trying to
see
find?
one.
The dog?
The Sayop, yeah, the Sayop dog eating human head effigy pipe as described.
Well, I struggle to find those images. So.
Let's go with dog, the Sayop mound, or Pricer. Let's do the Pricer.
Well, both those both those object collections had pipes in them. And it is my contention that the pipes, if they were ever used ceremonially, would have residue in the bowl that could be both dated and typified.
Yeah, if you click, you're almost there. If you click on that one at the black and white photo showing the two earthen lodges, earth mounds, that has the picture of it. It's called
Yeah.
Pricer
I'm
Pricer
gonna come
mound.
back to you, Vince. I'm going to stop sharing.
Have
and
you been
share.
there, Rick or Vincent? Have you?
No.
No.
You guys weren't coming with me. Is the problem? Yeah. Here. So it should be in here. This is titled the Sayop Group. Anyhow, you guys don't have to quit the tale. I was just trying to give our audience some visuals as we kept going about what we were talking about.
Yeah, it's not easy to find. They are constantly deleting these things and more reports and papers. You click the link and it says no longer available.
Looks like we have a
Yeah.
log crypt. Anyhow, so effigy pipes. Continue, guys. This is the
Yeah, I
general
think
stuff we're
we
talking
can
about.
transition to your question of 3 shows already to Rick that you haven't managed to go
But-
through.
Like the question of what?
So, I guess, Ricardo, fine. If we're just going to stop. Man, I was looking up a bunch of stuff to share. All right, fine. Moving on. Meanwhile, I had questions about the Welsh caves.
Hold on to that for just a moment. I want to make
Yeah.
one more connection between the Ohio mound and the Carolina mound.
Go ahead.
Please do.
They both used Flint Ridge for their points. They both used North Carolina mica for their communications. This trade network was both intricate and extensive. So it's not surprising that their ceremonial stuff or their, maybe that's their version of cartoons. I don't know. But it's not surprising that they shared these images.
You echo good points. The native narrative we're all handed does a very piss poor job of showing what they were really up to. You know, I learned just myself, even though I've studied the DeSoto Chronicles. You know, I thought you know, you can never know everything, right? I knew nothing about the boats. I started hearing about the boats from you, and then I heard Ed Barnhart on the shameless plug. Our sister podcast, The Universe Unveiled's preview for Ed Barnhart is on YouTube now. And anyhow, I'd seen some stuff early on from Sarah, and I heard him describing armadas, two-story tall, you know, weaponized ships, right? Now, if you have a society that has fleets and armadas, why is it shocking for me to have a society that has any of this other basic primitive stuff we're purporting they had here?
Well, and this is still in the writing part of it, because really can't, and all of the archaeologists, anthropologists, historians, everybody will tell you that you cannot achieve high civilization without the written language.
Okay.
I tend to say that you're full
The
of shit.
Peruvians disproved that. Okay, the Peruvians, how did they keep up with?
Well,
their
they did have a
shipping?
writing system,
They
but
had
the
ropes.
Spanish were
They're
too stupid to
fucking
recognize
knots.
it for what it was.
Well,
The
they had ropes
keeping-
and knots. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's where I'm going. Is there are plenty of recorded examples of high in industry, frankly, running without what you and I would call writing.
Right, and they obviously had advanced mathematics and ways to use it, ways to know for a fact that this stone that they're going to transport up a mountain is going to fit right. You know, and of course, their agriculture. What is it? 278 different varieties of beans that they were all growing on one mountain.
Yeah.
Right.
That and let's look at the astrological knowledge, you know, evidence in so many places. Look, you would think that to have this knowledge, I mean, we had to get computers almost to start predicting some of these long time movements of planets
When
and
you
stars.
say we,
The modern man iteration of the culture.
The modern
culture
man
that
still
is-
doesn't know how to do it. There's a few people.
Yeah,
that
that's
know
what I
how
mean.
to do it.
The mess we sit in now, all of us, right around us, anyhow, versus these people that seem to evidence a knowledge that took generations to acquire. Yet we see no signs of writing in many of these cases. Just saying, you know.
we see no signs of writing that we can recognize.
Thank you. Yes.
There are pictograms, there are all kinds of things that almost certainly had meaning to somebody when they were made, but we don't have a clue.
Right.
And
Somebody went to a lot of trouble at Göbekli Tepe, a lot of fucking trouble. Why didn't they put any letters in here? I mean, why is it all images?
Well, there are some images there that might be some kind of writing.
This
But
is my point, is perhaps
We're
the
12,000
images
years
were-
away from it. We've lost the ability to interpret that. However, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, there are 40,000-year-old symbols that still hold meaning. And they jumped oceans. Some of them did anyway. So for the current crop of science, if I can put it that way, to just blow this off completely out of hand without even investigating the evidence is a shame. They are hypocrites. There, I said that.
And isn't the Kipu that I think it's the name of the Knots language? Isn't it
Right.
somewhat similar to what you've shown us with the Ogham, with the lines and the crossings?
It may be, but we don't know how to read the Kipu. And even the Ogham, there's a lot of controversy because it's a writing system. It's not a language. And probably the same is true with Kipu.
Kipu,
If-
exactly.
If you were, if you were using ancient Inca language versus some of the other languages of the area, but they probably all wrote with the same thing or, recorded with the same ideas. Just like the Brits of 400 AD used Latin, but they also had Colburn in their back pocket. They also used Ogham to make quick notes. At least I think that's what happened.
And
How
no one
do you
ever
spell
tried
Ogun?
to use what we know about Ogman to read Kipu?
Not to my knowledge, no. But a couple of interesting things about Kipu. The dyes that they
Spell
use,
Kipu, guys.
uh, Q-U-I-P-O, I-P-U, I believe. Maybe just U-I-P-U.
Yeah, QIPU.
Anyway, so the dyes, the color of the knots, the ways the knot, 4 or 5 different ways that the knots could be made in one direction and then the same 4 or 5 in the other direction. And they all had separate meaning. And numerical was different from narrative, apparently. And some of the Jesuits in Peru tried to
It's
learn how to use
the
it, but they
ropes.
never
Yeah.
could master it because, well, they just didn't have the patience. Same reason they couldn't learn Mayan. That plus
Yeah.
the fact that they could not understand how context was part of the writing, but it was.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, guys. These ropes. So there was massive trade happening. I mean, that's just look at the towns. You're talking South America here, and this was how, at least when I learned about it, what they said was this was how they managed that. This
The
was
logistics of it, yeah.
Yeah, this was everything. This was what went where, how much I received. Who took it, all that. It was their record keeping.
Right. It was a form of
But to us, it looks like something you just want to throw around your neck.
Well, Ro, this not even Erwin Finkel can read. He can read Sumerian, but he can't read these ones.
Right.
but like Rick was saying, also we had these languages. I mean, people think Ikupu, well, that's so far away. Well, they had Mesoamerican dwarf figurines at North Carolina at the Mount Pisgah site. So there's figurines that matched as well. And in addition to that, the agriculture, well, corn. I mean, corn was used in both places. And one of the interesting artifacts I've been looking into is the celt connection. Well, guess what? In Illinois, I found this celt. It's actually a limestone celt, and it was found at Cahokia or near Cahokia. With this one,
Is that the picture you sent me, Vince, or
yeah,
you got it
it was
pulled up?
found with this one here. This is a stone celt, side by side. You see, they're about the same.
Let me get back to the
And
picture.
these celts were actually used in making corn. Nixtamalization is what they did. They used the celt in making corn, and the lime itself would change the properties of corn, and it would make the corn more antibacterial or had antibiotic properties to change the properties of the corn and make it able to process. So yeah, the agriculture was amazing. This nixtamalization is essentially like they use it to make tamales, and it's like having a Mexican restaurant at the street corner, like Rick mentioned.
And I'm also remembering, but I might be confusing. Isn't Rongo Rongo also one of these kinds of passing information?
Well, yes, it is. And if you look it up on Wikipedia or almost any other platform, they'll tell you it has never been translated. However, having said that, Barry Fell sat down and wrote it all out.
He sat down and read it.
Yeah, no, he translated it. And it wasn't because he knew the language, or I should say, the ancient language of Easter Island. Rapa Nui and all that other stuff was probably there long before the current residents arrived. However, the Rongo Rongo, if you matched it to the old songs, the children's songs, I might add, of Barry Fell's native New Zealand, the Morai songs, then he was able to translate it from that.
And the Rangu Rangu had the Birdman figurine as well.
Yeah, sure did.
They had
Okay.
great communication, and I mean, all the way to the middle of the Pacific. How could they communicate out there? It's amazing. It's one of the great mysteries.
Well, I don't know if you've ever been exposed, no, that might be the wrong word, to how radar works for over the horizon stuff. You ever heard of over the horizon radar?
No, I
It
haven't.
No.
measures
What's that
it
like?
measures backscatter. You send the beam out and you wait for it to bounce off something, and you read the amount of time elapsed, and you can get a range. You and get if you get a broad enough receiver, you can also get a location.
Like a Doppler effect, but to calculate
It
distance?
it's no, it's pure range. It's pure time of flight. But the if the target's moving, yeah, you might get a little Doppler, but that's not the real point. The real point is you can't see it over the horizon, but you can still get a reflection off of it. The same is true with light. If you have enough light, you
And
can see the glare of a light over the horizon in the sky. So is it possible? I don't know. I don't know how far apart they'd have to be or how bright that light would have to be, but it's not impossible.
Um, Rue, I guess, are you asking if Quipu communication was an alphabet?
Me?
No,
I
No,
Rue
think
I'm not.
that's where he's going. Yeah.
in the comments.
No,
But
I don't think it was an alphabet. I think it was probably a syllabary. So each knot color combination probably had a meaning of a specific syllable of their spoken language.
so it
yeah, I
makes
agree. I mean,
words.
I've heard it. It represents.
Syllabary it makes words, right? But unlike an alphabet, Ricardo, where I've got my set number of letters, right? In a syllabary, I'm making the sounds. It's phonetic, right? So if each little combination means a sound, the sounds put together make
Right.
words. Yes.
And where the Jesuits and the other attempted translators couldn't get it is that there's also a context. Like this syllable being used with this syllable modifies the idea.
Right, and even the knots themselves, I guess the size of the knot could be a quantity increase or a syllabary that's different depending on how it's
Or,
tied.
or
And
an
I,
order of magnitude.
right, magnitude. And I've heard also it could be related to map or a territorial depiction.
So, considering the complexity, can we speculate that it was a system that was also intended to be somewhat contained within one culture or one group? So it was not interpreted by others, like it was trade. It was it to keep it somehow secret, or you just think that's just what they used commonly?
I believe it's just what they use. But going on what you said about keeping it secret, maybe keeping it magical, why do you think they call it spelling?
Good
Good
one,
man.
very good one.
Why is a television a broadcast?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
And I want to address something that Rose said in the comments. He said that Finkel said publicly, and I watched it, that in order to build, in other words, in order to build Göbekli Tepe, they had to have language. I disagree. I think I understand his perspective. He's saying that because he considers that the civilization. He's trying to say that who built it were not hunter-gatherers. They were evolved people. They had lots of knowledge, not only in construction, astronomy, mathematics. They had all that knowledge, and that's why he's assuming that they had language. I
Division of labor, civil
yeah,
organization, yeah, all that stuff. They had civilization.
but I don't need. I don't think that they necessarily need a written language, because the problem is we are keeping dumbing down oral tradition, and oral tradition is as good or better than a writing system. It's a closed system, but it works just the same or better still.
Right, and symbols with meaning are by definition language. So I mean, these were meaningful to the people that made them, they should be considered a language and a written way. They had a way to convey meaning. So it was,
Yeah, we had Lee saying that he know a person that was taught in the oral traditions of a tribe, and the teaching lasts for 40 years. He couldn't make
yeah,
a single breath wrong. A breath, it's not a word, it's a breath. He couldn't make a single breath wrong. He had to start all over again. So that's the level of precision.
yes.
But no, it weren't hunter gatherers that created that, because it includes too much, thousands of years of knowledge to build that.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Okay, so Rick, how are you feeling? Do you want to talk Welsh caves for a little bit or no?
Sure.
Okay, so I don't want to give the audience much. I kind of want to see where you want to go with it. I will just say that my curiosity is piqued because this particular place, cave, is located precisely in the area that I spend much of my time and have made many of my videos antediluvian Alabama. So we, naturally my curiosity is piqued. But Rick is the declared expert, even by Mr. Pennington himself. So I figure it's best just to let him lead the way.
Now, Lee knows my definition of the word expert. Okay.
Let's hear it.
Now, Rick has expertise. He's not an expert. He has expertise.
Thank you for that. I have experience, yes. X is a
Wisdom.
has been and a spurt is a drip under pressure. Therefore, an expert is a has been drip under pressure.
An expert.
Now,
An expert. I got it.
and Lee is the one that got me and Vince to Welsh Caves the very first time. I've been there, I guess, 3 times since then. And as you said, it's near Mentone. It's near Fort Payne. It's near the home of the group Alabama. And I think their museum is still operational. And oh, by the way, the Fort Payne Railroad Depot is now a museum and a great place to visit if you ever get there.
I saw images of the Fort Payne Walmart tonight with this weather front that is moving through nationally, and it was insane. Let me see. I've got a map. Is the map up, guys? I don't have you in mini screen. Let me
Yes.
come back to you.
Yeah, it's up there. There's a red dot up in the right neighborhood, but
Yeah, so here we've got Lookout Mountain, just to give everybody a frame of reference where we're looking, see if I can't blow that up any. It's not going to let me. Wait a minute. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So now whatever I did there we go. Now let's minimize. Great. Okay, guys. So here we are in Alabama. Lookout Mountain, as you see labeled right here, is where Antediluvian Alabama is filmed in its entirety, other than here along the Cahaba River in Birmingham, and soon to come Hatchet Creek, which is just over here, the southernmost evidence of this. But anyhow, I just want everybody to see what we're talking about. Go ahead, Mr. Rick.
sure. So Lee knew that I had written an article for Ancient American Magazine about King Arthur, Transmatic, all the stuff around Louisville that was a connection, and how I kind of got an introduction as a writer for Ancient American. So Lee said, hey, there's these caves, and they're supposed to be connected to King Arthur, and so he set about to organize some of the local folks, like Jordis, if you're listening, and her late husband and a couple other folks, to go with us out to the cave and to interview some of the locals, one of whom had left there in 1964 to join the Air Force. But until then, he had played on that cliff as a child for, 16 years. And he recalled that there used to be stone walls on that part of the cliff, and that they were all the stone was missing now. And had a few other anecdotes about it, how it had been called that since long before he was born, supposedly. It's called Welsh Caves. And So we got as much of the background as we could get from the locals, and then went out to the cave with Vince, Jordis, and a couple other folks. And on that trip, we entered, and investigated, and went from cave one. There are actually three major in voids plus another small one, but the only safe way to get to the last couple are through a crawl space. You can go on the outside, but you're hanging on for dear life, quite literally. Vince went through first, and we found some.
It's precarious out there. There's a sheer cliff about 50 feet down.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you're in Little River Canyon, I mean that is a guaranteed 130 to 150 feet if you're up there at the top.
Yeah. Well, the cave is probably 20, 30 feet below the top. But yes, it's an impressive drop. And inside the cave, as soon as you go in that first opening, you discover that there's a big crack in the bluff. So all the water that runs off of the bluff does not go into the caves. It does not go over the top of the caves. It goes and falls down into that crack. So that makes these voids powder dry. Perfect for desiccating a dead body. Or a live body if you want to wait long enough. But so the tale, as interpreted by everybody from Jim Michaels to Alan Wilson to Baron Blackett to a whole bunch of other folks who have examined the evidence, the conclusion is that this cave may have been the first interment place for King Arthur after he was killed, and I believe it came out at 574 AD.
And this is the first or the second King Arthur?
This is the second one.
The second one.
However, having said that, and it doesn't show up in any of these images, but the cover of my first edition on the book, Graves of the Golden Bear, showed a sigla that is engraved over the opening of the cave. You saw it, didn't you, Vince?
Yes.
Can we find the cover of your book online?
Well, maybe.
What's
Used books on eBay or Amazon. I don't
the
think
title
there's
of the book?
one here.
Say it again.
Graves of the Golden Bear on eBay or on used books. Anyway, so that sigla, it turns out, and didn't know it at the time. It was later when I was researching that book that I ran across another identical copy of that sigla that was found on a piece of slate that was used as a writing slate at Tintagel in Cornwall. You know, the castle where Arthur I was supposedly conceived.
Is this it, Rick?
Yes. And of course it's highlighted, but yeah, that sigla is over the entrance to that cave.
So if you click the right button and open in a new tab, it will give you just the image. Maybe it's bigger.
Well, if you saw how many fucking tabs I had open, you might would rethink those instructions, boss. But I'll see what I can do. Okay, now if I press just the view image, okay. Yeah. Okay, share this tab instead. Okay.
No,
How's it now then?
Zoom.
Yeah, no, not a...
Control and roll the...
Yeah, I know the control roll.
Just trying to help.
All right. I know you are. I'm trying. I suck at multitasking, and look at me over here multitasking. That's all. Go ahead.
That's the inscription, Rick, that you're talking about.
Yes. And my interpretation, loose interpretation, because I'm certainly not the expert in this, is that the way this one is made versus the one at Tintagel is that Arthur's dead here. That's what that downward leg means.
Okay, Steve, send that to my ex.
Did you find any correspondence with anything in England of this symbol?
You mean other than Tintagel? Yeah, it appears other places, but in fact, it has become, since about the 1850s, it has been used in certain Masonic circles, but I never found anything before that other than Arthur. So it would not have appeared on official documentation because it's a sigil, not a signature.
So yeah, reading your book, it said the most logical interpretation may be King Arthur gone to heaven. The Welch certainly contains an empty chamber, which is consistent with Wilson and Blackett's interpretation of the Bardic Chronicles of Kings. The burial chamber is dry, even in spring, when would serve as a desiccation chamber for a body, as described in the Chronicles.
I've been there 4 times and it has stayed powder dry every time. All times a year, in fact.
So this is Wilson and Blackett's interpretation in the Bardic Chronicles of the Kings. So it's very well described in history.
So basically, what you're saying is the caves have a special atmospheric condition that naturally dries the bodies, mummifies them.
Yep. And at one time I was toying with the idea of trying to take some of the sand out of the bottom of that chamber to see if we could find any DNA or anything. But everybody's been in there has touched that place, so
yeah,
you're not going to get any good results.
And how thick you think it's the layer of sand?
It's at least 6 or 8 inches thick in the bottom of this chamber.
So not enough to cover anything in particular.
Not really. I mean,
yeah.
Arthur was supposedly not a very big man, 5'4", 5'5". I mean, that's big man for that time. But and according to the Chronicles, after he died, they sewed his body into 2 deer skins. It took 2 deer skins to cover him all up. And my contention, and Jim Michael's contention, and Baron Blackett, all of them. If you find that body and you find that deer skin, get the DNA of the deer skin, and you'll find out if it grew up in Alabama.
But you think that the deer skins would still resist the times until the present?
Kind of depends on, I mean, Wales is not great for that. They can't even find bones in the grave because the soil is so acidic, everything just decays away. So it's not a great prospect for that. But if you could.
I was just thinking that the cave where they transported him to might have the same type of conditions. That's why I'm asking.
Well, perhaps, but I don't know of any dry caves in the Great Britain, to be honest.
And you mentioned the graves of the Golden Bear got its name because of Arthur being nicknamed the Bear.
Correct. And in one tale that was not the 1170 version, he was called the Golden Bear. But it also goes back to the Mobiline on Isla de Statue. Isla de Statue. Anyway, there's an island in Mobile Bay where D'Iberville pawned, coerced, bought, whatever, drunk an Indian to take him out there because he'd heard that there were idols on this island where they worshiped their gods and made sacrifices and stuff. There were also mounds out there. I think it's called Mound Island now. But he went out there with this Indian and retrieved 5 little statues. And I don't have a good idea on just how big they are. But there was a man, a woman, an infant, a bear, and an owl. Now remember that in the 6th century, the Catholic, I'm sorry, not the Catholic Church. That's not accurate. The Christian Church had been in existence for almost 300 years. According to the Catholic Bible, it started in Britain. According to the some of the locals of the time, we're talking 33 AD, that's where all these people from the Middle East showed up on their doorstep. The Church of the Chaldee was founded in 35 AD, according to the Chaldee. And according to the Catholic Encyclopedia, that's where and when. So, having said all that, Arthur would have come from a Protestant, a Protestant, because Chaldees weren't Catholic, a Protestant Christian religion, which also made it very difficult for anybody in the U.S. government to recognize his existence at all, let alone here.
Those
Ricardo,
things still
you're
stand.
America, you're Lost America, America Unearthed. The two documentaries. Excuse me for interrupting. I'm trying to help. The post that you made with the documentary that has Rick going and has the video from Welsh Caves. Where's that on your X, man? I can't find it anywhere. Didn't you just repost it? Did you put it in your highlights? How do I find that?
I'll put the link for you in a second.
I found it. I found it. Continue, gentlemen. I'm going to send it to myself. Yeah, go ahead.
So, having said that, it's going to be an uphill battle to convince anybody, especially American authorities, that King Arthur ever existed, let alone made it to America. Or worse, died here and was interred here, because that's a whole different legal case of interred bodies. Even if they've been moved, it's still an internment spot.
So for us to understand, what would be the actual implications of such a thing?
Of Arthur having been here with a colony, because that's the implication. Maddox fostered a colony, a colonization of North America. And I really don't have time to go into it because we only have, 40 minutes left, give or take. If it was a colony, and it was an old world Christian colony, that changes everything about the whole sovereignty as traced from Columbus. There's a long-haired guy.
There's the long-haired dude for our audience. Where's he at? Where'd he go? Anyway, there, I skipped him again. He's right before that fucker. There's Mr. Pennington, just as he appeared last night.
Al Wilson.
Somewhere is long-haired Lee, somewhere in here. Anyhow, yeah, there.
There's that
Sorry,
dude.
Long-haired Rick. There he is.
Short
Also,
beard
somewhere
Lee.
near the
Red-headed
somewhere near
stranger.
short-beard Lee. Somewhere, I think near the end, we get some actual video inside the Welsh Caves. If you guys were talking, I was just going to see if I could. I've got it on mute. If I could struggle and find it. I know here we are back in England. I don't remember what part.
Maybe
Anyway,
in the beginning, I think.
Really? See, I thought it was late. Because I was like, finally, you know? Anyhow, yeah, so what is the evidence, just to make sure, I mean, unless you want to continue, Rick. Again, here we are. Here we
Well,
are.
if I could jump in.
Yeah, this is on mute. Please talk.
Okay, so the Wallam Olam includes the Bardic connection
There.
of the Welsh Caves. So the bards, Olam was the highest chief of bards, or the highest rank of bards. Olam, Ollamh, was
And the bards were the druids, right? Like Merlin, for instance, was
Right.
a bard. Yeah.
Right. So they had this document called the Wallam Olam, which was found back in 1820, and it even has earlier ties back. This was found in Indiana. Well, it has this Bardic language, and it was transcribed or translated into English in 1820. And so it used these symbols of the bards, and they translated it. The Lenni Lenape and the people in White River, Indiana, near Rick's neck of the woods, were closely associated with this document, and it was recorded on birch bark, just like the bards would use. They had boards.
Look at that weird rock with those horizontal lines lying on top like it didn't have nowhere to come from. I know this place. This is Little River Canyon. Okay, continue.
And all of those inscriptions that we are seeing are there in the Welsh caves?
No,
No. Oh, okay. Okay.
They're on the Wallam Olam. The boards that were recorded from the Wallam Olam had all these Bardic inscriptions. That they translated into
So
English.
this would be the Welsh caves. I mean, that looks like something there on that rock, right? Markings.
yeah, but I think that's all more recent graffiti.
Okay.
But if I could share my screen, I have a depiction of the Wallam Olam overlaid on a map of the country, and both of them had glyph right in the vicinity of the Welsh caves, and they
I
had
don't know where that
glyphs.
is.
They had glyphs for Ohio all the way out to Iowa, and even went out to the Pacific coast.
Sure. Now, while you're pulling that up, Vince, I think I'm done sharing. I think I stopped, is what I mean.
Vince is on it.
Yeah. While you do that, okay. So
There it
you're
is.
pulling up a map, which is what I'm curious about and where I want to go. But we've got time, so go where you're going first.
Okay, so this is
I'm going to bring us right back to the Welsh caves. Is all I'm saying.
okay, but this is the map, and looking at the Welch caves being down here. Well, these are each glyphs from the Wallam Olam and how they are overlaid onto the map, and each one correlates with a location. There were actual artifacts also correlating to the glyphs that were found at that location. Like in Ohio, there were artifacts matching these Cahokia Mounds, very similar artifacts, and even North Carolina, they had these mounds that represent the Mount Pisgah, North Carolina area. Well, down in the Welsh Cave area, Alabama, there's glyphs as well. And so these glyphs overlaid on the map kind of show the span that we're looking at, and how they traveled great distances, and they used the language, and each glyph represents not only a location but a chief or a leader that lived there.
And this would be in what times?
And we're talking about like 1,000 BC all the way up to European occupation.
And this is done by natives or by possible
Well, it has
early European travels or Mediterranean
I think
travels?
both. It's a combination of natives recording their own history, the Lenni Lenape, and the Bardic connection, the Olam, the highest level of bards, recorded this document on boards, and then it was translated. So there were these represent the leaders and the locations that they lived at and traveled through, and it was a migration legend as well.
So this could be possibly taught to the natives by the bards?
I think that yes, they taught each other how to convey their messages in language, form, and pictograph writing or picture writing, and then they like you mentioned, it was something they taught and inherited. For 40 years, they would have lessons about this and teach the next generation, and they kept these records for thousands of years. Each generation subsequently keeping the records and learning about it. So these artifacts and the location near the Welch Caves is really interesting, because these glyphs really correlate with the area all the way down to Florida, the East Coast, Ohio, Cahokia Mounds, even into all the way out into the
Yeah.
Pacific. So it's spanning a great distance and time.
Yeah, well, which we know they did. I mean, you look at, again, my area of reading the DeSoto Chronicles, and man, they were so connected, even when he got all the way almost out of the southeast, wherever he was, his farthest trek over to Arkansas, right, wherever. Even there, he would run into Indians that would give him tale of the other expedition that was states away. I mean, that right there is modern evidence of a very well-connected continent, in my opinion.
Right, absolutely. And even the Europeans showed up, and they said they met Indians who had traveled from coast to the west coast in less than a year. And they conveyed these stories about their travels. So I mean, these people were traveling all over the place, and they're recounting their journeys. And the Welch Cave is really interesting because I mean it just shows the magnitude of the time frame and where these are located really correlates well with that location.
So isn't it the Rick? Isn't it the? I think it's the Edina or something like that that had obsidian from Yellowstone, had shark
Well,
tooth from the coast, from
yeah.
all over
Well,
the United States.
but I think the trade network lasted a lot longer than the Adena did, to be honest. Um, However, the use of copper had periodic declines and regains, whereas the obsidian and the Flint Ridge Red stuff and the Indiana Blue, um, these were pretty much throughout occupation. You can find points made out of these things that are 8,000, 10,000 years old, and you can also find them that are less than 1,000 years old. The material was popular for that long. Certainly wasn't the only thing they used, but it was traded thousands of miles or thousands of years.
That reminds me of a question that one of the individuals that I respect on X is called Moundlore, and he says that the problem with the copper is not exactly what we are trying to do, but is the fact that somehow, for some reason, they stop using it altogether and return to stone tools. And he says that is the mystery. Why did that happen?
I have an idea. River routes changed.
So it ceased to be important, and the
Yeah.
natives were not that into it. Is that it?
Well, it was still important, but it wasn't important enough to reinvent an entire transport system. Something changed about the water levels that now made it more difficult to obtain the copper at Lake Superior and get it to, say, Poverty Point.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
Before,
right. Yeah, because
so
there's clear evidence for major river level changes from the Archaic all the way up to the Mississippian. And I
right,
mean, even at Welch Caves, the water level must have been so much higher because that was all that was all next to a ravine that had been washed out by water. So these giant rivers must have existed that had been somehow drained in
yeah.
between that time.
Well, if you look at the whole Younger Dryas event and the period surrounding it, water levels were all over the place. If you want to consider the ice, well, hell, water level was 2 miles above the land at that time. So,
Yeah, overall we go to a 400-foot rise, but in it getting there, it would have been up. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
All of
it
it.
went
right,
up and it went down and went up again. Because I
right,
remember being on Point Abbey, right, and there is that crest that we had to climb. That is the ancient level of the water, and it's
Oh my
taller
God!
than
Hi,
me.
JC.
It's taller than me, so it is a huge difference in
OMG.
water levels.
yeah. So there was a period of time that lasted something over 1,000, maybe 2,000 years, where you could take your canoe with your load of copper. And when I say canoe, this thing was 40 feet long, carried
Sure.
4,000 pounds of payload plus your provision.
Which is
And you could,
Yeah, imagine
two
the tree
tons.
size that used to be on this
yeah,
continent, all over, and
five,
then
five,
yeah,
6 feet across.
yeah.
Anyway, you could get in that canoe at Isle Royal and you could stay in that canoe till you got to Poverty Point, which at that time was, of course, the coast. Meaning you did not have to portage anywhere. You did not have to go over a falls or a riffle. The water level was that much higher then, going over what is now considered the Continental Divide in northern Indiana. But even today, it's only 11 feet.
Yeah, because when I look to Squire and Davis illustrations, and I
We're gonna
see
get
all
back
of
to
the
Welsh Caves, right,
yes,
Ricardo?
we are. When I see those elevated walls that are next to the river, I question myself: was this all full of water, and that was to keep the dam higher and safe from the water itself? Was this all water around these enormous structures? A square alone could keep the Great Pyramid inside it with
Yeah.
space to spare. So this is huge structures that they build, and I wonder, could this been because of the water? Maybe not everywhere, but it sure jumps to mind that it looks
Well,
like
but again, it changed over time. So
sure.
the getting back to the Welsh caves period of time, say the 6th century AD, that is the period of time when the Hopewell were building those walls around all of their stuff. Was there a connection? Well, I tend to think maybe there was a connection. They didn't like those
So
white
you're
guys
saying
because they were
invaders,
assholes.
maybe. You're saying invaders, maybe. Is that what you're saying? They started building walls?
I investigated a site in extreme southwestern Ohio. You could see into Kentucky. You could see into Indiana from, I'm sorry, that's correct. That's incorrect. Extreme southeastern Indiana, you could see into Ohio and into Kentucky. And this place had 5 mounds in a line on the eastern side of the site and a couple of small burial mounds over towards the northwestern part of the site. And as I said, you could see into 2 other states. And this site was between 2 rivers. So this was high, elevated, and enclosed, still had walls, even with all those natural defenses.
Gotcha, Steve.
But it also had the 5 mounds that could be seen in Kentucky, and they could be seen in Ohio at Shawnee Lookout and Miami Fort. You know where I'm talking about, Vince.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read this that Steve gave us to get us on the Welsh Caves. And before we run out of time here, I've got some serious fucking questions, and I need some info. So we're going to get to those. But first, let me read what Steve has got for us here. By the 18th century, the Madoc legend was well established, widely believed among the gentry, and loudly championed by Welsh scholars. Well-circulated stories of fair-skinned, blue-eyed Indians who knew the Welsh language were taken as proof that Madoc's men had indeed settled in America and left descendants. In a letter, former Tennessee Governor John Sevier added heft to the claims with his description of a conversation which he said he had with an elderly Cherokee chief. The chief said that the stone fortifications in North Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama were built by people who had crossed the Great Water and landed first near the mouth of the Alabama River near Mobile and had been driven up to the heads of the waters until they arrived at Hiawassee River. This fits neatly with Sevier's view of Native Americans as savages and incapable of building stone forts. Okay, Steve. So we're making sure we're not giving any of the fortifications to these other people, I guess is where you want me to go with that, which is true. But my interest is in this cave and in this cave and this legend. See, for my interest, Rick, I don't need it to be Arthur. I don't need it to be Madoc. I don't need it to be anybody in particular for my area of interest. My area of interest is if somebody did cross the water, right? I happen to believe that there were maps, available, probably for all of our history. I don't need to go into it here. The Araunchus Phineas maps, we have evidence that our modern map makers, 1400s, were using much older source maps, perhaps lost at Alexandria, other ways, right? So there were maps. Now, anybody that studies secret societies, be they Templars, Rosicrucians, Masons, whatever, okay, you're going to bump into the fact that much of the secret they held on to was of antediluvian technology, knowledge, maps. Most importantly, that finger, sorry ladies, maps, right? So when I hear tale and I hear of potential evidence in a cave in an area where I have found Antediluvian Alabama on YouTube, check me out, Shaman 711, where I have found what evidence to me ruins from the Younger Dryas, ruins of the lost civilization. I see evidence of things I can't explain, and I know they're not natural, and they're of a scale, gentlemen, that I don't think anybody's quite ready to prepare, accept, so I don't talk about it fucking often, right? But for me to then learn that in this area I have a traveler who made it across the water, most definitely some sort of noble, some sort of man with means, and most likely with these maps. So now I'm wondering, did he end up in this cave by fucking accident? Or was it perhaps marked on these maps that were sourced from these ancient sources?
Well, you're assuming that he got here on purpose. And
this is why I need you
evidence,
to get me into what we're saying about who went to this cave and why exactly.
Okay, well, let's start with Maddox was at sea when there was an extraterrestrial impact event, and his fleet was blown to the west. And this is also the beginning of what we call the Dark Ages, because it was shortly after that, well,
okay,
the Dark
let me play
Ages
devil's
started.
advocate and let me get it real clear with you. Okay, is it necessary that it was Matic? Do I have evidence here
No.
in this cave on this side of the water? And I'm going to let you keep going, but I want to make clear in my head, it's not necessary that it's him, that we still have the problem of the evidence of the Welsh cave, right?
Correct. The evidence of the
Okay.
Welsh cave is mostly the most convincing part to me is the anecdotal stuff from the residents of 70 years ago,
Sure.
60, 70 years ago, as well as the signal over the entrance, because it's old, it's weathered. It is not a 1920s fraternity sign.
Right.
And we also have the idea going back now almost 300 years that there was a Welsh Indian tribe.
I heard these stories in some of my research of tribes that even the language was sort of just passed down because of whatever descendants and whatnot.
But language, complexion, apparently even songs, and perhaps a book or two. But again, there's no surviving evidence of that one, at least not to my knowledge.
Perhaps, Steve, perhaps in our chat, the moon-eyed people might indeed be their way of referencing a blue-eyed people.
Right.
Yeah.
So actual evidence in Welsh caves is pretty much what we have described here tonight. But the legacy of it is a lot bigger than that. You mentioned earlier that they came in through Mobile Bay in, I believe it was 1912, somewhere along in there. Daughters of the American Revolution put up a big memorial plaque at the head of Mobile Bay commemorating Prince Madoc having landed there and brought a colony. And you can't find that thing to now. It's no longer there. In 1990-ish and earlier, the Falls of the Ohio Museum in Clarksville, Indiana, directly across from Louisville, had a display about Madoc in there discussing how the legend lived on of what we call Devil's Backbone, and how the fortress that had been there had been built by Madoc and his followers. And there were other accompanying stories in the general area about how they'd been gathered up and killed off by the natives.
And I mean, perfect. And so then on the other side, we have evidence of this gentleman named Madoc leaving with potentially people.
Correct. And of course, most of that evidence, documented evidence, tales, chronicles, history, if you want to call it that, but they don't, of him gathering up colonist livestock, tools, you name it. And this was his second voyage, because the first time was by accident, if you recall. The second time, it was on purpose.
So that, sorry, Jason.
No, go.
That impact would be the one 7.6 BC or 6,000
No,
BC?
572 572 AD. But no, hang on, 562 AD, give or take.
562. Okay, it's the most recent one. Okay.
Yeah, and it's one that's commemorated. And you can still find the chevrons in North Carolina, by the way, that went 27 miles inland.
27
This was a big
miles.
impact. Pardon?
27 miles. Okay.
Yeah.
We continue this. I just feel the need because of obviously some things, said in chat and just people, I'm certain are watching to clarify that, look, any of this, especially we're talking about a relatively small band of folks, right? This contact, right? This should not get caught up in any argument about, that denigrates the native peoples, right? That is not at all what we're saying, right? What we're saying, in fact, is that the native peoples, had some legends of people that were different than them. To put it simply,
Right.
being around and even maybe sticking around for a while.
Well,
Go ahead,
the
Rick.
way Chief Cornstalk described them to John Sevier or Seaver is the white Indians and the black Indians. That's how he described the two races. This is the Indian describing the two races,
Right.
and
Well,
that the
so,
white Indians.
Go ahead.
The white Indians had skills and arts that the red Indians or black Indians had never gained, writing, metals, other things. Now, we know for a fact that at least in Middle Tennessee, where Cornstalk lived, they raised deer and bison in pens to have milk for infants when the mother died in childbirth. They didn't always have a wet nurse. They might have other sources of milk for their infants. So it wasn't one of those things where the natives had to be taught everything. The natives probably taught the newcomers, much like they did the pilgrims, how to survive in a new land. Well,
yeah, absolutely. I think that's why you would, if this something like this happened, if you just want to generally play it out in your head, of course that's what you're going to see. Eventually, the newcomers will look much like, to a third outsider, much like the originals. They will be living in very, very similar ways. Now perhaps the other group has some cultural things that they haven't exchanged, or that the other group said we don't need that. So that would not have crossed cultured. But over time, somebody would have described them as lighter or darker of the same thing, and they had a few different things going on,
Well, I think it was just a convenient descriptor to tell the two groups apart, as from Cornstalk's point of view. And he also figured Severe's enough of a racist, he'll catch on, which is almost certainly true. But anyway, so the time frame is 560, 570, and by 570-ish, whoever was in that pocket of dry ass dirt in that cave, decaying, in about 572 to 574, was almost certainly a Welshman, or they wouldn't be called it that. Okay, I know that's circular logic, but
I mean, if your coffin, how was it put in the documentary? If your coffin has Rick Osmond written on it, I would expect it to be Rick Osmond. Something like that was how Lee put it.
Yeah.
So I'm also, as time is kind of winding down, there we go. Vince has got something for us back on the copper. We got too many independent researchers to keep all this in 2 hours is what I'm learning. But we're doing good. I want to get a trip, myself, right? I'm not requesting any assistance, but I want to get myself up to this Welsh cave. And do a little filming and just see what my eye, who has been investigating that landscape for several years now, pretty regularly, what I see from there. I'm very interested to do that. So tell me about that. How's the access for this place? Is it rough go? Is it easy? Is there actually a park?
No, there's no mark on the trail. None that I could find the last 2 or 3 times. There's a trailhead, probably, I'm going to say it's probably 3/8 of a mile, maybe a half a mile from the entrance, or from where you go down the cliff. And the cliff is, I'll say, a little bit precarious. There's 2 different ways down. One of them, you take a 10-foot drop with 2 steps. So hang on to something.
Got it. Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with off trail up there, but it sounds like I'm probably going to have to confer with you further when I get my date and figure out precisely how to find it, huh?
Um, yeah, I forget what that trailhead, what number that trailhead are. They actually have names for the trailheads up there, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's labeled as in DeSoto State Park, so I'm sure I can find
yeah, coming
ways
in
to
from
get
the
to
other
it.
way, if you come in from the residences that you can actually see from the falls,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
you can come in from that way. Of course, you're crossing private property when you do that, but
Oh,
I think there's actually a trail up around it.
what side of the canyon is it on, right? So if I'm on DeSoto Falls, the side where all those houses are, is it on that side or the other side?
It's on that side. If you're
Okay.
at the falls
Same
and you
side as
look
the
down,
trails.
yeah, yes,
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
So
it's not
the
very far off
guys,
the trail.
my followers who know the big circular metal deposit, okay, that is where we're talking about. All right, the big circular metal deposits, so the three of them
It's
in those
certainly in that
stones.
neighborhood. So
Um,
so
it
where
is.
that
It's
is,
within a 30-minute hike with and just guessing
oh yeah,
based
well
on how
within
you're
that.
describing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
there.
So from where we'll call it the ball, the sphere, the whatever that thing is, concretion, um, about I want to say about 150 yards further along that trail, there's a sand dike. You know what I mean by a sand dike? It's a
Explain it to me.
geological feature that sticks up out of the rest of the geology, and that one's
Uh-huh.
about that tall, about that tall, and it's grayish, blackish, sticking up out of the surrounding stone. You can see a vein running off into the distance, and that's kind of a marker. You know, you're next, real close to the trail going down, and it would actually be back from that probably 15, 20 yards.
And this is if I'm walking the top trail, right? Not the bottom
Correct.
trail down by the river. Okay.
Yeah, you can't get there from the bottom trail.
Got it. That's my favorite trail. I've done the top mostly just to show some of the views of what I found down on the bottom trail. So now I know
Well,
precisely where to go. Then
my
I got
contention is
this.
that if there were any detritus left over from the Welsh expedition, it should be right down there on that bottom trail underneath those caves.
So I'm
Take
trying
a
to pay attention to chat
take
too.
take a
What's
metal detector next time you go on that trail.
you don't have to take a fuck. Well, I will, but the metal that is in the rocks, man. I
I
mean,
know, but it'll come up different as refined metal.
but yeah, I will. I'm very excited because now I know where it is, and guys, it's in the spot. I mean, I don't know how more accurately to say and to try to show my excitement. If you've watched Antediluvian Alabama, not all the series because I covered the whole area, but the big thing that everybody's all caught up in, those circular metal deposits and those rocks that make no sense with the carvings and the roadside rocks that look like giant paws and snake heads. That's where we're fucking talking.
Yeah, and
Excuse my language, but I'm excited.
I'm curious to see how are those markings and if you can find anything more that's covered or.
Well, Lee and I looked for turkey tracks and other, the normal, I'll call them normal, petroglyphs and whatnot, but we never did find them. They're supposed to have been on some rocks there by that one falls, but never did locate them.
Somebody was asking about my swords. There's a very long story that I won't get into here that involved two swords, and those two swords were Mason swords, and they were stolen. And I ended up being part of that story. But of course, I eventually got the swords back to where they belonged. But I wanted to remember the two swords incident, and so I got myself two swords. It's a great story. I'll go into it some show for us.
So they didn't want them back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not these. No, listen, bro. If I had to tell you how that second sword got home, the first sword I took properly to a young man whose father was in that group, and who I knew he worked for the sheriff of the county on undercover bases, and he was also his next door neighbor, and the sheriff ran the Mason Lodge in that county, and some young drunk boys had broken in and stolen these swords, and I happened upon the first one, And anyhow, I get it back to my friend there, going, I know you'll appreciate this. You'll know where it goes, right? But the second one is a story for another day, how it got home, because I left it with a friend. And then my friends that were in the Masons wanted to show me something about how they work. And I ended up on that night just freely telling them where the other sword was. When you're at somebody's house, man, and the state troopers and the undercover state cars and the local police and the police from the town over and the cars from the county over all pull up on the same mission, you get loud and clear what they're trying to say.
They're all in the same lodge. They're probably all in the
we
same
could tell.
FOP hole too.
But all of this is bouncing around this whole strange quest we're all on looking for our past. But I am genuinely intrigued now and excited, and I think I found my next video mission, which is to get back to DeSoto State Park. It's only about a 2.5 hour little run for me, and see if I can stumble around and find this Welsh cave.
Well, you can ask a ranger or almost anybody, but the maintenance people know it better than anybody else because they walk the trails all the time.
I like trying it by myself first, Rick. If you haven't seen enough of me yet, I'm going to test it first. Yeah. And then after I get lost and if I'm unsuccessful, I'll come out and ask for help. But I like proving myself to myself, so I'm just going to
just prove the ranger that you are not hunting.
Well, when you see this long-haired dude barefoot come running through there, jumping in the creek, swimming under the falls, I mean, I'm obviously in love with the place, man. They leave me alone.
I left Rick at the base of the site that we're seeing and said, "Don't worry, Rick. I go and get the truck," and I bring the truck down. When I get to the truck, there is a ranger truck parked in front of it, and they're looking into the truck, and I said, "My dear Lord, I don't have a passport, I don't have identification, I don't have anything with me, and I'm gonna pick up a truck and drive." So and they say, so are you fellows hunting? No, we're filming. We have a crew there, we're just filming. "Oh, we gotta complain that there's folks hunting in here." I said, "No, it isn't us." So in front of them, I enter in the pickup, and whoop, in he goes. I'm just as American as everybody else, just driving this truck down the road.
That's the great part, dude, about doing it guerrilla style, like I was, through necessity. I don't have equipment, I've just got my phone with me. Which fortunately doesn't even work up there for a phone, so you can only use it for a camera. The cell service on top of Lookout Mountain is terrible, and it's part of the reason, I'm sure, why the atmosphere is so very different in that place.
Rick,
guys,
do you have anything to promote?
As we're coming to the end here, let's throw it to our other two, and then we'll get to a wrap up here shortly.
Yeah,
we now have an active Patreon, Lost America on Patreon.
And they find it by Lost America. I can put the link on the description.
Yeah, you'll have to go find it because I don't have it in front of me,
Okay.
And I don't know how to use the.
Sure, I'll put it in. I'm just asking you if I could put it there already.
Yes, please. Yeah, it's active. So.
Okay, and so these episodes that are there are now free. Is that it?
Yeah, and if you sign up, then you have free access to everything we add later.
Okay. Do you know how much is that people have to pay?
I do not.
Okay. I believe what I saw on my page when I went there, I believe it's $5, which I think it's as cheap as can be to what we can learn from this series. So it's unbelievably cheap. So I recommend everybody to look at the link that I'm going to put there, and I'm going to put also in the post on X for people to go there. I think there are 7 episodes or 8 episodes available right now.
I've seen the ones you posted.
I put 9 and 10, but they're already there from
so
1
worth it.
From 1 to 7 or 1 to 8 are already there on the Patreon page to be watched for free.
Yeah, it's a lot of important information, and it's done well, especially Gen Xers, anybody that watched documentaries from the 80s and 90s. I loved it. I really did.
So it's If it is, if I'm correct, I think it is $5. I think it's a very very low price, and I hope lots of people support this project and help to promote this series, because it's unique. It's unique. You won't find anything like it in terms of the people they talk to, people with knowledge, but simple people. There is not a
it's real.
yeah.
It's very real.
It
real
sounds very much
production.
like all sound like Lee, very much so.
Yeah,
Well-
that's what you get from it. And no matter what you think about any particular theory that's being addressed in the show, you're going to enjoy it. Is all I want to get across. Is it's fun. You know, if you've got limited downtime like I do, and you like learning, you know, while you watch it. You're going to learn no matter what you think of the overriding theory. You're going to the places and you're talking to the people, and I really liked it.
And saying the things. We
Right.
we went to museums pretty much all over the eastern part of the United States, museums and sites and mounds and every place, and we tried to portray what it is, not what we think it is or what anybody else thinks it is, just kind of what it is, and then the discussion can start.
Yeah.
And people are very open, even in the museums. I remember seeing some previews of episodes of you discussing a stone. I can't remember the name of the stone right now.
Probably the Davenport stone, but
And you are with this lady in the
Newark
museum.
Holy Stones. We went to all those places.
Yeah. And the lady never said you are wrong. Just to
No.
say, well, that's interesting. You have to try
Yeah.
and prove that.
But that's one of the things about the museums, and I'm going to eat 2 minutes here. Museums are not archaeologists; they're curators. They have the stuff. They're not the ones interpreting the stuff. They're the ones telling us how it was interpreted. So I don't hold anything against any of the museums for doing what they do. It's the people who told them that I have a resentment for. Sorry.
Except the Smithsonian.
The Memory Management Museum, the Smithsonian.
There's
Vincent,
good people
do you
there.
have
I'm sure
anything
there's
for
good
the,
people
for the
there.
good folks before we start to try to bring her on home a little bit.
Yeah, I guess just to wrap up, I mean, we talked at the beginning about the Mount Pisgah relics and the need for the Smithsonian to let them be tested and determine, you know, they hold them, but yeah, let's try to prove and determine what they are. I think that it still has a possibility that we could do that. It would just take a more concerted effort with, you know, possibly getting permission from NAGPRA or tribal backing to do it now. I mean,
Well, that's what it takes.
something like that would be approved through the tribes and want to be respectful of the tribes and everything. And just hopefully that this will open the door to that, like possibly to continue the testing and actually allow it to happen so we can all learn about it. And
Vince, you can't be applauded enough in these efforts. You know, you're like a fucking guard dog, man. You're just completely on it. And if it weren't for you, you know, this wouldn't exist. This movement for verification. You know, and we're just grateful to have you as part of the team, dude.
thank you. Appreciate that.
I'll go, and then Ricardo, I'll let you wrap up. And all I want to say is I kind of just hinted on with Vincent there, and I echo the same to Rick and Lee Pennington this week. You know, Jason personally couldn't be more touched by what occurred through the course of this show this week. I couldn't be more privileged, you know. I couldn't feel more, by my own standards, accomplished, you know, and no one knows my standards but me. And that is due to you gentlemen, to Lee Pennington, and to really all of those, you know, I've yet to meet who are playing such a pivotal role in what I, you know, became my sort of marching orders was bringing the truth of our past to us, you know. And you guys and Lee, you know, especially with his poetry and the way he just walks the earth, let alone this historical knowledge he has, to me was just a privilege, and it made much more than my week. I know we might have some of his followers watching, because part of the graciousness of his nature, he shared this show tonight with his followers on Facebook. And I just, you're going to see me fail for words, guys, so I'm not going to try, to say how much this week meant to me, whatever it means for the show, because our mission here is to not just try to get this information out, but to get it out first, you've got to get it, right? You've got to get it. And it's information that is in the hands of elders. It is in the hands of things that have fallen between cracks, right? And someone has to be trying to get this in one place. And here at the Institute of Natural Philosophy, that is sort of, the driving, the marrow in our bones. And so I'll end with, it's a privilege, as always, to have this show with you guys. I'm so glad we get to do this every week. And I'm so grateful to Mr. Pennington and to any of his followers that have found us that way. Just for being who you are, I'll end with how I started. Meeting that man and knowing he's real, right? Knowing he's real saved a piece of me and emboldened a piece of me, and that's the truth. And I'll end with that. Ricardo, you do the promotions.
Sure.
Go find me on YouTube, Shaman 711, Antediluvian, Alabama. You will see what we've been talking about here. I believe I found evidence of the lost civilization after it suffered the impacts of the Younger Dryas high heat, high energy event. I also, as you will see behind me, have a series called Finding Mabilla, where I have found all of the shit that DeSoto left behind because he decided in his genius to burn all of his stuff at the Battle of Mabilla. Look for my series, my episode, Finding Mabilla, a presentation with our sister podcast, Universe Unveiled, who has an episode with Dr. Archaeologist Ed Barnhart coming out next week. Ricardo, you, sir.
Sure. I just want to. Apparently, it's not $5. Sorry, I mislead you. It's 4.5. So, do think about it, and it's you already have in here 8 episodes for free. My cable is stuck. Okay, I freed it, and the link is quite easy. I'll put it down. It's quite easy. It's patreon.com/CW/Lost America. As you can see here, access
every Friday,
benefits.
Christos.
So,
Thank you.
what happened to my screen? It disappeared. Just curious, how often does the RoundTable Chronicles air something new?
Yeah, that's Cat Plan.
So every Friday around 7 p.m. Eastern time, we try to go around at that particular time.
Catman, I dropped the link over in Illegitimate Scholars, our buddy Sam, his Discord. I met Catman over in Dan Richards' Discord, I think, several years ago. So thanks for coming over, man.
As Vincent, just before you go into that, I just want to say you can find me on X on the tag that is on the screen. You can find our work at the YouTube channel called The Shaman and the Philosopher. When we do our recordings, the lives are done here at the Institute for Natural Philosophy page because YouTube doesn't allow us yet to do it in The Shaman and the Philosopher.
They don't trust us yet. Can you blame them?
And you can find my books on Amazon. They are the Resonant Earths, based on ancient megalithic technologies and applications that we are using today, and a history of science, history, and consciousness called The Stardust that you can also find on Amazon. And I think you already did our sister podcast, so I'll pass word to Vincent. Thank you all for being with us.
Vincent, what you got, brother?
No, just want to say thank you, and yeah, there's a couple of books that anyone would want to read. This is Michigan Copper by Fred Riedholm.
Michigan Copper.
Superior Heartland by Fred Riedholm. These are books that touch on the copper that Rick was mentioning and how it was transported across the continent.
So he coined the phrase that I used accidentally, that is where did the copper came from, and he said, where did the copper go, right? Those are the books that coined that phrase.
Yes.
And this is the
Well,
man that founded the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society, where I gave the presentation in October.
pretty
and
much,
where-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations,
Good
Ricardo, doing great work, bringing the copper conundrum to the forefront and receiving help and acknowledgement from many different people in many different fields.
I'm just following the work as
Yeah,
so many
shut
as
up.
Rick.
You suck at taking compliments, okay? Now, we've battled
Pretty
enough in
good.
private over this. I'm going to bring it into public. You just need to shut up for a second and let me tell you, good work. Excellent job, mate. Plain and simple.
Oh,
Now,
you-
everyone...
Sorry, you can also see, I recommend this. We do a show that I was inspired by Terence McKenna and Rupert Sheldrake and Mark something that I never remember the name of the mathematician. They did a series every year. They got together, took a lot of drugs, and did something called the Trialogues. And so we tried to recreate that.
You have those on Sunday.
And
with
we
Ethan
have
Indigo
those,
Smith
yeah.
and
with,
Headless Giant.
Exactly. Every Sunday at 11:30 Eastern Time on YouTube Live
I
and on
usually
X.
watch those. Yep, I catch those live.
You've
and
been
had
on
me
one.
a few times. I've been on two.
Oh, two. Yeah.
Yeah, quite impromptu.
You've been on
It's-
Too
it's-
Money. Go away.
See my face too much. Okay, everybody. One last reminder. We do have a new series we're going to start every month with Dave from Dave's Multiverse, Brian Corey Dobbs, the award-winning documentary maker of Blue Planet Red, and John Ward, the Mars researcher from South Africa. We're going to do a monthly podcast called Mars Disclosure Live. We will be starting that for the first time on 2/5, so February 5th. And I believe what John Ward is going to do in that episode, he and Brian are going to walk us through kind of how they find these anomalies in these pictures that NASA puts out. That's the last plug I think we missed. So, heartfelt to everyone who follows us on this adventure. You know, I know we're hard to find right now with the way this thing goes live. We could not thank you enough for making it all possible.
I think, Jason, we are going to have Dan Sutton tomorrow, probably live. He changed last Saturday to this one. I can't find the time, but I will contact him. We'll
So at
be
the whim of the
live.
guest, you guys are probably going to see us tomorrow.
We're going to talk about the moon anomalies.
The moon anomalies, yeah. We had a great moon researcher reach out to us. You know, as we're getting a little validity to the show through no small help through guys like our guests here and guys like Lee Pennington, we're starting to have people with some really interesting work come to us. And that leads me to our outro. If you are an independent researcher, communicator, artist, activist, anybody out there that has information that you perhaps have received some pushback from the whole or the main, but you also believe this information is important to the main and you want to get it out there, come see us. I found the Institute of Natural Philosophy, and now we want to find you. Vincent, thank you, sir, for all that you do. Rick,
Thank you.
you fucking dickhead. We'll see you next time. I love you, man. Thank you for being you. Ricardo, brother, it looks like I'm going to see you tomorrow. And to everyone in the audience, we love you. We truly do. And we thank you for your support. And we're going to keep
Tomorrow
trying to
I
bring...
get snowed in.
You get snowed in. I get iced in. We're going to talk about moon anomalies. And we're going to continue to try to just shine light on all this knowledge and bring it to you folks at home. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Very fond farewell.